the Course Radio Network presents The Roy Green Show with Roy Green, keeping you informed and entertained. Now, here's Roy.
Our segments on the situation in Japan, and particularly our segment of just a few minutes ago with Charles McGilton, who is in Sendai, and Bob Tobin, who is in Tokyo. Lots of emails, and so many people are concerned about the nuclear reactors and want information on that. Well, at the beginning of the program today, we had Robert Alvarez, Senior Scholar for Nuclear Policy at the Institute for Policy Studies, on the air, and Dr. Patrick Moore, the head of Green Spirit Strategies and the former president of Greenpeace Canada. Dr. Moore is very supportive of continuance of the nuclear industry, and we have them both on the air. Mr. Alvarez has his concerns. And what we'll do at the bottom of the hour, we'll play back most of that interview so you have a sense of what these two experts had to say about what may, in fact, be going on with those nuclear reactors in Japan. But we'll start the hour with this story. U.S. Congressman Peter King's congressional hearings on the, quote, extent of radicalization in the American Muslim community, end quote, has resulted in charges of intolerance and prejudice, as well as garnering both support and division in the Muslim community in the United States, and there's been no shortage of opinion in Canada either. With me on the Roy Green Show on the Corliss Radio Network is Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's the chairman and the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He testified at the hearing, and he's a frequent guest on this program. Dr. Jasser, good to have you back with us.
It's nice to be with you, Roy. Thanks for having me.
And Yaser Tabbara is with the Council on American Islamic Relations in Chicago. He's on the board of CAIR, and he joins us for the first time. Yaser, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Roy.
Dr. Jasser, Congressman Peter King's rationale behind the congressional hearings on the extent of radicalization in the American Muslim community, end quote, has been compared by some to a witch hunt that's by the opponents and accepted as a rational investigation into homegrown terror by supporters. You spoke at that hearing. What makes it, in your view, what makes what Congressman King is doing, in your view, particularly relevant?
Yeah, I think, set aside all the vitriol and the histrionics, and remember, we repeated this many times during the hearings, that I've never said that Muslims wouldn't turn in somebody if they knew he was going to plant a bomb or do something violent. Cooperation is much more than just that. Cooperation is a mindset. It's a culture that goes far beyond violence, and it's just like radicalization. It's also a mindset and a continuum. So when somebody gets radicalized, it doesn't happen overnight. And if you look, despite those efforts of law enforcement and Muslims cooperating with that final step, the pathway towards radicalization hasn't been affected. If you look at the last 220 arrests by the DOJ on terror cases, over 180 were Muslims. So in a population that's less than 2% of the American population, you know that we have a problem. So if you want to fix it, it's up to us as Muslims to fix that. We're the only ones that can. And I think the hearings were the beginning of a platform and a discussion to discuss that, what we can do to break that cycle, discuss what it is of that ideology that feeds into one of those endpoints, which is violence. And
Yaser Tabbara, as you listen to, and let's go right back to the beginning. When we first heard that Peter King was going to hold the hearings, and then you paid attention to what was being said in the hearings, was there anything of any substance, anything positive that came out of this?
Absolutely not, Roy. Let's remember the starting point of Representative King's hearings, and basically his earlier statements about 80% plus of Muslim mosques in the United States preach radicalization from the pulpit, and all of that's nonsense. Peter King, from the very get-go, had this agenda about the overwhelming majority of Muslim Americans being radicalized on the pulpit and through their organizations, and this kind of feeds into what your guest is talking about, what the mindset and the mentality. And The reality of the American Muslim community is, nothing could be further from what has been stated, either by Dr. Jasser or by Representative King. I mean, I am someone who's had his fingers on the pulse of the community, been a leader of the civil rights issues, representing the civil rights issues of that community. I'm an attorney by profession, and who's been doing this sort of thing for the past at least 10 years. I've visited hundreds of mosques across the United States. I've been on the pulpit of many of these mosques. I've listened to maybe thousands of sermons of these mosques. And the message is very clear, and it's very powerful, and it's very strong in the direction of civic engagement, of citizenship, of Americanness, of being patriots, of serving our country, of basically reducing any sort of, or eliminating any sort of a schism between our Muslim identity and our American identity. It's been, Muslim American leadership has gone above and beyond to emphasize this particular point. This is not only on the level of pulpits in the mosques, of thousands of mosques in the United States. But
let me have you both address each other on this, because you're both Muslims in the United States, and you both represent organizations, and you both have a prominent role to play, not only in the Muslim community, but in the greater United States community. Well, Dr. Jasser, why don't you go ahead?
I just have to make a
Hold on.
comment here.
I think your turn is done, my friend.
No. Because this is an important point, addressing what you just said right now, exactly, Roy. This is a point that really needs to be paid attention to. You're basically putting two Muslims on a show that are representing supposedly two different point of view. Okay, and that's totally fine, and that's totally acceptable. That's actually
and it's also accurate
to healthy debate. Now, the problem with that is that Dr. Jasser is entitled to his personal opinions, as misinformed and as misguided as they may be. He's entitled to them. What he's not entitled to do is to purport that he represents any sort of community of Muslim Americans. I mean, we're talking about someone with an organization.
Yaser, you and Dr. Jasser can thrash this out if you wish, but it really isn't. And you've made your point, and Zuhdi, you've made your point. I think it's going to be more illustrative for our listeners if we can focus on the hearings and what really, if they're not the answer, then what is? Zuhdi, go ahead though. Yaser Tabbara challenged you on the relevance of AIFD.
Yeah, and I think actually if you look at it, he mentioned that somehow his experience, what we talk about is not all mosques, not all imams, but some imams and what they're saying. And if you look at the substance of my testimony, I talk about the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America that includes scholars and experts, that include the President of the Islamic Society of North America. I put in my testimony fatwas or religious opinions that tell Muslims don't work with Homeland Security, don't work with the FBI, fatwas that tell Muslims citizenship is sort of a necessity because ideally you should be in the Islamic State. The Assembly of Muslim Jurists tells Muslims if you're an apostate, you by Islamic law should be killed. So these are fatwas that include experts that the Islamic, let me finish, that include experts that include Muhammad Majid, the President of the Islamic Society of North America. And I have been at mosques from Washington, D.C. I've been in a mosque here in Phoenix. I go to sermons every week. I saw an imam that was part of the leadership of the North American Imam Federation that held up a picture of an American soldier that your organization distributed. And again, I put in my testimony that said that soldier was raping Iraqi women and was killing children. That you cannot tell me that doesn't radicalize American Muslims.
Let me take a break, and let me just do this, take a break, and then when we come back, I'll ask you to just speak to each other, because again, there's a reason you're both here, and part of that reason is for our listeners to have a better sense of what the issue is about, the debate is about, and what the King hearings are about. And if you can speak to each other about that in a way that that we understand, then everybody comes away with I think a more positive experience from the segment. We'll come back with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser and from CAIR, Yaser Tabbara on The Roy Green Show on the Corliss Radio Network.
This is The Roy Green Show, all along the Corliss Radio Network. News doesn't stop happening on Fridays. With News Talk Radio at its weekend best, The Roy Green Show delivers on the Chorus Radio Network.
We began by speaking about U.S. Congressman Peter King's congressional hearings, and this is a quote from the website, or from News Stories, on the, quote, extent of radicalization in the American Muslim community, end quote. And now I think we've gone beyond that. And Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, the chairman and founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, who testified at the hearings, supports the hearings, and Yaser Tabbara of CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations in Chicago, he's on the board of CAIR, rejects the hearings. But we've gone, I think, gentlemen, we can agree we've gone past the hearings now, because, Dr. Jasser, you brought up an issue about radicalization in mosques. Fair statement?
Yeah, and actually that was everything I brought up was in my testimony, I tried to cover some of it in the brief oral remarks I made, but it's all in the submitted official testimony, what I mentioned.
Now, at the end of the day, the objective here for this segment is for our listeners and for me, the host, to have a better sense of what the issue is about. There's a lot of talk about radicalization. There's a lot of talk about homegrown terror. There's a lot of talk about various communities, and there's a lot of talk about how we go together go forward as a greater community. Right. Yaser Tabbara, why don't you respond to what Dr. Jasser just said, and then if you can just talk to each other, so we have our listeners have a better sense of where you're going. It'll be very helpful.
Absolutely. Whatever Dr. Jasser has submitted in his testimony does not make it basically facts. Does not make it. The fact that it was actually mentioned in a formal hearing does not necessarily make it true or correct. I am telling you, the reality of this community is that it's an open, transparent community. Every single mosque in the United States has its door open to whoever wants to come and observe and listen and see. Every Friday, there's a Friday sermon that's the equivalent to the Sunday Mass in Catholic churches and Sunday services and other churches. It's an open service. People come and it's.
Don't you think there's an anti-American?
Can I finish, please? And it's basically mentioned it's stated in English. And if you go through these sermons, if you go through the discussions that happen on the listservs of American Muslim leadership, if you go through the discourse of a lot of these Muslim organizations that are taking the lead on civil rights issues and civic engagement, all that, you'll see at stark contrast to what your guest is basically putting forth as to the.
All right, let me switch this over now to Dr. Jasser. Have him pick up.
Radicalization. At what point, Yaser, do you think we as Muslims can intervene? You know, for example, Imam Awlaki was preaching in Denver and San Diego and then in Northern Virginia. He didn't just overnight become radical. There was a slide before he became violent. He was preaching an anti-American ideology that nobody was speaking about publicly. Where do you want us to intervene?
The moment he started with his unacceptable discourse and radical discourse, he was rejected by the American Muslim community, by the leadership, and by the people.
Before the radical, when he was
this is a very healthy, very aware, very transparent American Muslim, very American actually Muslim community in the United States, and that's the reality that is being completely misrepresented.
All right, Dr. Jasser.
The very fact that you have to have a hearing. I mean, the problem of radicalization. Let me just say this: the problem of radicalization. I think we're talking over each other. The problem of radicalization in the United States extends. I'm sorry, I cannot. We were talking over each other.
No, okay. Let me do this, gentlemen. Let me do this in the interest of time and in the interest of our listeners hearing what needs to be heard. I'll just ask you each to address the points that you made. Dr. Jasser, go ahead and address what Yaser Tabbara just said.
I think it's really important. I want Yaser to address the fatwas of the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America that includes tens and tens of imams from Detroit to New Jersey to the Islamic Society of North America. There are fatwas on there that are religious rulings that are incompatible with loyalty to America. Do you think that should not be openly criticized by organizations like yours?
That is simply false, Dr. Jasser. That is simply false. I don't know which fatwas you're talking about. Okay. The fatwas, the overwhelming amount, the fatwas are on websites. Everybody is welcome to go to the Council of Imams and look at the sort of fatwas and look at the sort of positive engaging discourse that talks about the importance.
Dr. Jasser, where are they to be found, Dr. Jasser?
AMJ Online, Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America.
Give me an example of one of these
imams and scholars that are the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America.
Give me an
it even says the Pledge of Allegiance is not good to be said. What?
Give me an example of these fatwas.
Okay, one fatwa says that basically it's from a scholar at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. He's a pediatrician. He tells a Muslim that asked, should I be, what is the punishment for leaving Islam? And he basically says that it should be death if it's under an Islamic state, but since it's not an Islamic state, it shouldn't be. Another one asked him if he should serve in the American military, and he says basically that you really shouldn't because this is an infidel military, that it is not Muslim, etc. And this includes, if you look, there's a bottom of the website.
Okay, this information that you're giving, Dr. Jasser, is false. Okay, because I am telling you right now, I am very aware and very connected to the leadership of the Islamic Society of North America and their Council of Imams, and which is, by the way, the largest Muslim assembly of organizations in the United States. And they take the position of supporting the military. They take the position of supporting Muslims in the military. They take the position of anti.
So, Dr. Jasser, Dr. Jasser, you're saying they exist on the web, and Mr. Tabbara, you're saying they don't.
They do not. They simply do not. And what I'm saying.
Have you looked at the assembly? I'm not talking about.
All right, Dr. Jasser, gentlemen, please.
What I'm saying.
Dr. Jasser, where?
Okay, I'm being interrupted again. I don't know.
No. We have 2 minutes here.
Okay.
Can we just do this in the last 2 minutes we have? How do we move forward? How do we move forward as a greater community? How does the Muslim community come together, and how do we move forward as a cohesive community? Let me start with you, Yaser.
The overwhelming majority of the Muslim community is already moving together. The problem is...
I didn't mean just Muslims. I mean the greater community.
Who's basically superimposing his positions that are completely non-credible. Dr. Jasser has zero credibility with the American Muslim community. Nobody listens to him. Yet he was invited to a Peter King hearing to speak on behalf of the American Muslim community in complete disregard to the many, many Muslim organizations
Dr. Jasser?
that are in complete leadership of this community.
I have to get Dr. Jasser on because of the limited time.
Again, you can attack me personally. The bottom line is go to AMJ Online. It's an Assembly of Muslim Jurists. You will see these opinions. It's not ISNA's opinion, but they have their president listed as an expert. So basically there's a lot of inbreeding going on there, and we need reform. This is not the majority opinion. You're not listening to what I'm saying. This is a minority. However, we are not. If you don't countermand those ideas publicly, it will fester and cause radicalization, and it's far before the violence. It is a continuum of separatism, which is part of political...
I began with you, Dr. Jasser. I'm going to give Mr. Tabbara the last word here. 20 seconds, Mr. Tabbara.
Roy, Dr. Jasser, again, the American Muslim reality it speaks for itself. It's outside, it's transparent, it's online, it's on the pulpit. The American Muslim community has gone above and beyond in fighting radicalization within its own community. It has delivered people to the FBI, including an FBI informant, by the way, in one of California mosques, who have been basically saying things that were anti-American and that could result in an attack.
I have to stop you there.
On our soil.
I have to stop you there, Mr. Tabbara. Thank you, Dr. Jasser. Thank you very much. Appreciate you both being on the show.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Roy Green Show on the Chorus Radio Network.